Even if you have seen it, it's still not funny. It's sort of a very obvious but really dated kind of joke. It's like, oh my god.
Hello and welcome to the QUACKCAST. This is the Drunkduck QUACKCAST number 474. I'm Ozark Nation, and with me is Pitt. Hi, Pitt.
Hello.
Tansy. Hi, Tans.
Hola.
And Baines. Hello.
Bonjour.
All right, so we're talking about we're all stuck inside at the moment, pretty much, or for a lot at the time. So we're sort of doing things to keep ourselves interested. That includes doing comics, but watching stuff. Also some work in Pitface's case, and Tance or Baines. You're not so stuck inside, are you? You're sort of out and about and doing your things. But
yeah, I'm actually inside now. Update.
Oh, good.
Yeah, stopped working for a little while anyway.
That's safe. That's safe. So we're watching.
Weird. Yeah.
Before we get into all that stuff and what we've been watching and the excellent TV series, we'll sort of have a chat about. And movies. I'll talk about the featured comic. The featured comic was something that not Tance. Tance never does features. No, this was.
You got Tance on the brain.
I know. This is constantly. I can't stop thinking about it. It's QUACKCAST has given us a feature this week, and it was FCL 55. So talk about that. FCL 55.
Hello, this is QUACKCAST, and the feature I've selected for this week is FCL 55 by Doe L FCL 55, and it is rated M for mature. When an uninvited call girl's attempt to make easy money is foiled because of a sleeping client, a large-scale sting operation planned by the police is also derailed. Brothels, sterile hospitals, and a time set 300 years in the future make this the perfect backdrop for Superintendent Inspector Baum, who is searching for certain individuals. This is a science fiction adventure for the ages, rated mature for nudity. This comic is drawn in full digital colored pages and in a professional style. The text bubble colors and fonts vary based on the speaker. Take a trip to the 2300s and read FCL 55 by Doe L FCL 55, rated M.
And that was the featured comic QUACKCAST gave us, a Fooly Cooly. No, it was FCL 55.
You're brainwashed.
Not Fooly Cooly, which is a great animation. You should see it. It's cool. All right, next up we have the featured music. Gumballs has given us the theme to a comic that I featured, actually. Hyperbolic Fabrications Presents, which is, this comic's like a bunch of anthologies. I think that's what you call it. Or it's an anthology. Like, it's like different short stories.
It's a bunch of anthologies.
Yeah, it's not a bunch yet. Possibly in the future it'll be a bunch of anthologies, but yeah, it's just one anthology right now. Completely misspoke. Yeah, so this music, I would describe it as a journey of distortion and red, jagged energy. This guitar-driven rock sound hammers with red waves of violence and fury. A momentary break, a calm, a waiting, then we dive back into the chaos of raw sound. So take it away, Gumwallers, with Hyperbolic Fabrications Presents. And that was the music by Gumwallers, the theme to Hyperbolic Fabrications Presents. Okay, so we're talking about all the TV shows and films and stuff that have been keeping us sane in these past few weeks of global plague and pandemic and zombie viruses outbreaking everywhere all over the place. I've got into a few shows that I've been watching and been finding quite interesting, like American Gods, second series of One Punch Man, which I love. And I even started Arrested Development because Baines has been going on to me for years how great that is. So I started that.
And?
Well, it's not bad. The first season's a bit... First season's a bit tropey at the moment. I don't know. Maybe like the second season gets better. I'm not sure. What do you reckon?
I'm not sure either. I don't know because as much as we get along, like I find our taste is the complete opposite. So I probably shouldn't be recommending things to you.
Look. You recommended Always
You
Sunny
hate everything I know.
in Philadelphia. And I loved that. Yeah, the cream cheese capital of the world.
Right.
I loved
That's
that.
right.
That was brilliant. So
Excellent.
hit and miss.
Yes, exactly. You never know. You never know.
Never know. So what about you guys? Tans, Pitsy, Baines.
I have been watching this Italian series. It's a mini series, really. It's like 8 episodes, 9, something like that. That is called Il Processo, and it is about a trial. I think Il Processo means the trial, and it's about this dead girl that is found murdered in some river in Italy, and we follow the prosecutor that is assigned the case, who eventually, very quickly, so this is not really a spoiler, realizes that this girl was her biological daughter that she had given up for adoption when she was 18 years old. So she gets very, very invested in the case. And it's very interesting how things unravel basically around all the characters, the person that is accused, the persons that are accused, and how the trial ends. And hopefully there's going to be a season 2 because it was very, very interesting. And it was filmed in Rome and I think some part of Florence as well, and it's very picturesque. Even though there are a lot of scenes in the not Supreme Court, but the court of a really heavy crimes.
Dear.
Life and stuff like that. So there's that. I really enjoyed that. I just finished it. I also got sort of hooked into watching the one and only reality TV I'll ever watch, which is MasterChef, the Greek MasterChef.
Mm-hmm.
And it snuck up on me because I was zapping across the different TV channels, and there was this chef that was cooking something, and I just wanted to see what it was, but it was MasterChef, and it was this contest, and there were many different people that were cooking different things, and I got hooked on that, and now I regret being hooked on that, but I can't look away until the train wreck ends. So there's that. And I also saw the latest Jackie Chan movie that is called The Foreigner, and I very much recommend it because it's not the usual stuff that we have associated with Jackie Chan. He doesn't fight as we expect him to fight because he's getting on in years as well. Not that he's not he's very agile and strong and stuff, but he's not doing the stuff that he was doing when he was like 30 years old or something. What he is doing is very interesting, and the plot is about this foreign naturalized British citizen who loses his last remaining daughter to a bombing that was supposedly done by a rogue cell of the IRA. And so he's not interested in the IRA per se, but he wants to find the actual specific killers, the ones that put the bomb that killed his daughter. So he has to find out who these people are, because he wants to personally kill them, and that's the plot. His antagonist is Pierce Brosnan, who plays an ex-IRA politician who is not exactly ex-IRA and stuff. It's very interesting. Again, yeah. I recommend that a lot. And I also watched Butterflies Are Free with Goldie Hawn, which is an old movie, but very significant one, about this young guy who is also blind, and he wants to become independent, but his mother, who is very overprotective and has done her best to basically bring him up to be as independent as possible, now is making him not be independent. And Goldie Hawn is this girl that he gets together with and sees the catalyst to the relationship between him and his mother. And that was also very, very well written and well acted. And I liked that. Yes. More or less that's the whole from me.
All right.
So.
Okay. Well, that's not bad. It's a huge survey of the different things. What about you, Bones?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we talked about on the Patreon video, I watched Rear Window, finally, which I'd never seen. It was fantastic. The old Alfred Hitchcock classic, influential thing. I also watched, since Pitt's here, I can talk about this horror movie. I wasn't even going to bring it up, but since she came on, it was, for a horror fan, I thought it was, I don't know, you have to judge like a B horror movie on a different scale.
What was it?
The Girl on the Third Floor.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
It's on Netflix. Quite good. I think a horror fan would probably like it. I wouldn't say it's an amazing movie or anything, but
it's good for a Netflix horror movie. Is that
I
what
would
you're
say
saying?
So. Yeah, and good for a horror fan. I think a lot of horror fans would appreciate it.
What's it called again?
The Girl on the Third Floor.
Girl, all these the girl movies now.
Yeah, it's part of that series with the dragon tattoo, but it's not as well known. It must be like an epilogue or something. I don't know, or a prequel. I don't know.
Oh
Is
my
it
God!
Really?
Now that
No.
Oh yeah.
Nothing to do with that.
You were like, oh wait, really? Wait, you're so deadpan.
After she kicks the hornet's nest and gets the tattoo, she, I guess she haunts this house or something.
Out of a window.
Oh, okay.
No, completely different. But this guy's renovating this house, and he's a very flawed character, a great horror protagonist, very much on the line kind of between a good guy and a bad guy. And that's pretty great. And a lot of like gross stuff, nice practical effects, and like out of kind of the outlets and little seams in the walls. It's like splatting goo in the guy's face and stuff. It's gross. It's cool. It's got a little bit of an Evil Dead vibe, kinda, not as funny.
I was just gonna say, like how you were describing that, it was reminding me of that kind of Evil Dead sort of like, here, we're just gonna throw shit on our main character and just have them deal with it. I love that kind of thing because it's just fun to watch. That
influence is there for sure, I would say. and it's like it's shot well, so it does make you like wince and go, oh god, no.
Oh,
But then you
good.
keep watching.
Oh,
that was cool.
I'll have to watch it. Yes, now.
I mean, I
Now
hope you
that
like it.
you
I'm not positive.
now that you mentioned horror, I also watched a horror movie, and it was terrible, and it was on Netflix, and nobody should see it. Especially horror fans shouldn't see it. It's called, I think, wait, it's called Deliver Us from Evil or something like that.
Oh,
Definitely
yeah.
something. And it's terrible. It's I am not a horror fan, and I generally get mostly like affected from horror movies. I don't like, but this one actually made me laugh, and
Not
it
in the
was
way that
so
wanted to make you laugh, though, right?
what
I said not in the way that it wanted to make you laugh, though, right? In a way that,
no
yeah.
it was in all the places where I was supposed to be very scared or have like suspense and stuff, and the one thing and the other thing that was very annoying about it is that it has jump scares that have this the jump scare sound
Oh,
that
the
goes
manufacturer.
"Wee,
Oh, really?
wee." That's the thing that goes right through your eardrum.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's annoying.
Yeah, that's very annoying, as a matter of fact. At first, it made me laugh because it was like, be very afraid, and it was something silly that jumped in your face, and it felt like a teen movie that was really trying to make the adults pay attention or something like that. It felt like this. But yeah, don't see it, guys. And the plot was it was an exorcist style movie with a couple of priests, one priest and one guy that becomes a priest, I guess, that go to exorcise some kind of demon. But
They
yeah,
usually do.
don't see it.
That reminds me of the Conjuring films that I saw. Like there are a whole bunch of ones based on the theme of like the Warrens, who are these this couple in
Yeah.
New England, and they do all this stuff together. I mean, it's all like it's like meant to be like a true story, but it's like total bullshit. It's based on their fanciful stories that they wrote in order to try and like get money from writing books, because it was really popular in the 1970s after Amityville Horror and stuff, and Exorcist the film. So I think Amityville Horror was all based on Exorcist, and they thought, oh, we can make a bit of money here, and they got together with some people and they sold the book. And anyway, so the now there's these bunch of films, and it's like casting the Warrens as like real life paranormal investigator, like superheroes. And as horror films, they're sort of traditional, but they're a little bit over the top, and they're just basically hilarious. I'm not someone who's into horror films. They usually make me feel very down and depressed, but I found these like genuinely enjoyable because it's funny, and it's like just so over the top and silly. Like, they're using all the standard 1970s and 1980s tropes. And these are films made in the 2000s, and they're just using all those old-fashioned horror movie tropes, even with digital editing and stuff. And it's just really, really funny and enjoyable to watch. So I'd recommend it from that point of view. Annabelle Comes Home, The Nun, Conjuring 2, I think. Conjuring. Yeah, so fun films.
Yeah, they're just kind of cheap, sleazy fun.
Yeah, exactly.
I have seen Insidious, which I think it's Insidious I'm thinking of, which is very similar and like created by a lot of the same people.
I get them mixed up a lot. Insidious is
me
the one
too.
with the guy that looks like that Sith Lord guy, right? With that he's like black and red and
Yes, I think so. And the psychic is the main character. It turns out in most of the movies, even though I think she
Yeah.
dies in the first one. They keep doing prequels, but it's a pretty good little universe, really. Actually, it kind of hangs together. At least the three I saw.
Yeah, following the psychic investigators is a good new theme rather than following the monster, which means you could
Right.
always have the same protagonists and without having the unthinking monster and gradually having to reveal the history of the monster, which like dilutes the horror and the scariness. If you follow those people into different horror things, then you could get to create new scenarios,
Right.
which is more
Yeah.
interesting.
Which is very reminiscent of a comic book if you think about it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
old, you know, you
Like-
have your main guy, and then Superman's around Superman, Batman's around Batman, but especially Batman had all the different villains and stuff he would go up against, and that's a big part of where the fun of Batman would lie. You know?
Mhm.
And that's kind of the approach that these movies are taking, more or less, which it's cool.
We'll
I
find
don't
out
watch
about
them a lot, but
Yeah.
maybe I just have been too high and mighty about it. But I do like the concept quite a lot, though, because you can do a lot with it, and it just won't get stale unless you let it get stale by executing it poorly.
overdoing it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, The Nun overdid it a bit. I think it was a different director who does the normal Conjuring stuff, and they just overdid it a bit too much. Like, we focused too much on the nun character, and we just gave her a little bit too much rounding out, which makes her less scary. So it's like there's a scene where she's like in this like flooded room, and she grabs this like novice nun and stuff, and you get to see like the water reflecting off her face and stuff like that, which makes her less scary. Because the scary part of the nun is like she exists in the shadows, and she forms out of the shadows. If she's actually touching and holding, and you can see reflections, you can see stuff on her, then she's no longer incorporeal. She's a corporeal kind of thing that you can see and touch, and it just doesn't work. Oh, speaking of incorporeal monsters and stuff, Tance, I've just noticed you have got a skull on your shoulder.
I do actually, yeah. Not many people notice.
That's a good eye. I wouldn't have noticed that.
Thank you for noticing.
Oh, jeez.
And that freaky face behind you on the curtains, that's crazy too.
That's my sometimes invisible friend that knows everything.
He knows.
Well, speaking of another horror thing, I watched Brightburn, which is it's a story about, say, Superman, but Superman was evil instead. What would have happened? What would have he done?
Right.
And it sort of comes out more like Damon Omenchild, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, this boy who's destined
It also
to kill everything. Go on, Tance, sorry.
exactly, and it also seems to promote that the child is born evil,
Yeah.
and there's nothing you can do about it because he grows up in a very loving family, and that has absolutely no effect on him whatsoever. There is no cause and effect in his socialization, except just be in situations that make it even easier for him to be pissed at everyone. That's all it is.
Yeah, and for me, one of the biggest flaws of it, besides that, was that as it's a horror film, but he's also creating it through a superhero character. He's got no Achilles heel. The only sort of Achilles heel he's got is fragments of his ship can cut him, but he's got nothing he's scared of. There's nothing he is afraid of in the world, really, that he's like, nothing he thinks is going to kill him or anything like this, really. And so there's no real stakes. He's just He just becomes this big bad monster and he can kill everything, you know? So what? Nothing's going to change. He's just like, as soon as you know he can do that, the film should end because there's nothing more to be said. Yeah, he can kill everything. Okay. Move on. What's next? So for a character with huge power, there's got to be some kind of limitation on that. Even if it's a bad guy, in order for you to have some kind of tension or stakes. Not just, oh, his mum might stab him. Oh, she didn't stab him, and he probably wouldn't have died anyway because he's like super powered. So who cares? So Brightburn it's sort of good, especially if you like horror, like, you know, people's jaws falling off and terrible wounding and all that. Great if you like that stuff. But if you like a story with a good structure, it's lacking, you know?
Yeah.
It doesn't give you a good feel.
Give it a pass.
Yeah. It just doesn't
And
give
it's
you...
yeah, and it's also disappointing because an evil Superman fascinating as a concept.
Yeah. Definitely.
There are so many that could have been done, and you would have because he's as a character, Superman is very emotive and connects to environment and stuff. So having him being raised by people that make him be evil, that would be a sight. I would want to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no.
I think there are some comics based on that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. For sure, there's lots.
Yeah.
You know which movie? There was this movie that was in the style of found footage, and it was about three friends that gain powers,
Oh, yeah.
and one of them becomes evil, and there's this climax towards the end and stuff. That's the one that was done a lot better.
That was a good movie. Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
can't remember what it was called.
I just don't remember how. Yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there's
The
this...
Seed, isn't it?
Hmm?
Anyway, whatever. Yeah. That was good. I know the one you mean.
Well, there's this new TV series called The Boys, which is about these superheroes who aren't necessarily good. If you guys have heard of that.
Based on a comic, I know that.
Yeah. One of the people starring in it is Anthony Starr, who's in this great New Zealand sort of sitcom drama called Outrageous Fortune. It's weird to see him as a superhero. So yeah, I haven't watched that one yet. So
Yeah, me
Terrence,
neither.
you watched some superhero stuff, didn't you? You watched in not Infinity Wars, you watched Endgame.
Oh yeah. Okay. By the way, I found which movie it was. It's called Chronicle.
Okay.
Chronicle.
So
Okay.
that was the one with the found footage and stuff.
Yeah.
I did watch Endgame. I hadn't planned it. It just happened, and it was okay. It was an okay movie. I haven't watched the movies leading up to it, which I understand is a big problem. But seeing it cold, yeah,
Yeah.
it was okay. It was an okay movie. That's all I can say about it, really.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't been watching all those big superhero films, like those massive ones. But for me, what I was doing was watching the DC ones. So I watched Aquaman. I watched Birds of Prey, and Shazam. Shazam, who used to be called Captain Marvel back in the day. That was the first Captain Marvel, I believe. Which, funnily enough, that came out at the same time as Marvel's Captain Marvel, which is interesting. And in the film, he never calls himself Shazam. He just uses that as the name of his power. He calls himself, he doesn't have a name in there. He sort of, they make a joke on it. Everyone's calling him like Captain Power and, like Lightning Bolt Man and all these kind of things. So it's interesting that they made the joke on that. That was a really good one. But my only problem with it, so these are DC films going in the Marvel style, which is a good move because that seems to be where, what people are liking. But my only problem with it is that so there's a wizard who gives him transfers him his power onto this boy, Billy Batson, I think, or Billy Badson, and he gives him the power. But this wizard's been looking for someone to transfer the power across to, but they have had to be pure of heart, right? So he finally finds Billy and he gives the power to him and everything works out. But the things that Billy does, because he turns into this huge man kind of thing, huge, big, tall, muscly guy, what he does with the power is just silly stuff like going and robbing cash machines and going to vending machines and making it give him bottles of drink and stuff like that, like cans of Coke. And I'm thinking, like, for a character who used to be a golden age superhero doing this kind of petty criminal stuff and like trying to get a loan under false pretenses, this like goes absolutely against what the character was, which I found a bit on the nose. The rest of it is pretty good and pretty fun, and it's good homage to that golden age, origin stuff. But still, I found that a bit on the nose. It had some good scenes on it, though, like he's fighting this guy. The villain's played by Andrew Strong, I think, or Anthony Strong. He's this bald Scottish guy, but he plays an American in the film. And they have this big battle, and they go into a toy shop, and there's a scene where Shazam jumps on this giant piano and to do the fight, and they're sort of fighting, and that's of course a homage to a Big, where Tom Hanks' character wishes he was a big person, and they do the whole scene on the piano. I thought, there was a lot of scenes like this, homages to stuff. All in all, I'd say Shazam was a pretty fun film. It's good. It's not perfect, but it's good. Aquaman with the famous Jason Momoa, the big tough guy with the long hair, that everyone loves at the moment. I think also that Australian actress is his mum.
Amber Heard.
Who?
Amber Heard.
Is it Amber Heard?
Although she's not the mom, but Nicole Kidman is his mom.
No,
Nicole
not
Kidman
mom.
is the mom.
She's the girl. Yeah.
Making some headlines recently. But
Yes.
It's another story.
Oh. Well, it's a fun film. It's sort of uneven in the way it's structured. It takes a long time to sort of get up to speed and to get into the main A story, which you're sort of led to believe from the watching the previews that the trailer of the film, that this whole big scene where he just sort of discovers his MacGuffin, which is the special trident, sort of happens in the beginning, but that like takes forever for that to happen, and so it's very, very uneven, but all in all, it's another good, fun, flashy effects film. Very, very effects driven, and it's a good homage to various bits of the Aquaman lore. Like, people will say when they watch it and they think that it's like it's pandering because now he's this sort of Maori-ish guy, and like Maori Polynesian fellow, and like with the long hair, and he's not the blonde kind of blue-eyed fellow like that we know from Aquaman and the cartoons. But in the actual comics, there are comics where he was like that predate this film by, like 20 years or something. So, that long-haired badass Aquaman is canon. That's not something they just invented recently or for Comicsgate or anything else. That is from back in the day. Not back in the day. It's like 90s stuff when long-haired badass dudes were cool. So...
And you know what? If he can pull it off, which it sounds like he does, then why not?
Yeah, he's awesome. Jason Momoa is fantastic in everything except Conan. His Conan was shit.
I mean, he'd be a great Lobo. That's the big downside.
Yeah, he would be awesome as Lobo. Yeah.
He's very funny. Jason Momoa, he's very good.
I would mind Jason Momoa as Lobo. I still don't want a Lobo movie right now.
I
love Lobo, and that's why I don't want it right now. There's
I think they might
be
too much weirdness in the culture, and they'd want to make it kind of.
He would be
general audience.
He would be very progressive now, if made now.
Yeah, which is not what Lobo should be. Lobo should be...
Yeah, you want a rated R, man.
Bad. Lobo should be like... what's his name? Oh, God, what's that stupid character's name? He's always... Merc with a mouth character.
Deadpool.
Deadpool, that's it. Shouldn't be Deadpool, but should be a film that sort of is free to express itself, like Lobo, like Deadpool is free to express itself. That's what I mean.
Lobo is... See, I haven't seen Deadpool, so I can't make a comparison. But, I mean, Lobo is a womanizer. And bad, and he's just, he's just basically a space lemmy, and he's just, I don't know, he's out of control, and I just don't know. I don't trust a lot of big studios that would handle it well. I don't know. I don't know. And then you get it on the other. Well, yeah, like at one point, they were talking about like a Michael Bay Lobo movie, and that just takes it to the other end of the spectrum. Like, yeah, it's stupid, and it's like maybe but it's too much though. It's not in the same vein. Maybe he could have handled it okay, but there's a finesse to Lobo, where he could, punch through a guy's face and it'll be funny. Like, he's not a tiresome character, but he's trash. Like, and you got to hit that good chord,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there is that good fan film on online that's sort of...
Yeah, that was awesome.
That's good Lobo introduction.
No, I haven't seen that one.
Oh, it's on YouTube, so just look up Lobo short film.
Oh God, it's got to be more than 12 years old by now, I imagine. What was it? 2000.
Okay.
It was around 2007. I could be wrong, but yeah, it's good. It's based off of a paramilitary Christmas special, which is one of the Lobo one-offs. But anyway, we're talking about movies. You mentioned Lobo, and I'll run my fucking mouth for days.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Well, say something that was a real thing that I did watch was American Gods, which is a Neil Gaiman TV series. Neil Gaiman, based around a comic, sort of short story, illustrated comic or something like that he did. And so the whole idea is like these are gods in America. These are the old gods battling the new gods, and the new gods are the gods of technology, i.e. media, the internet, technical devices, versus Odin, who is the chief of the resistance, or the chief of these efforts to resist these new gods, and they're taking over everything. And it's done pretty well in that Ian McShane plays Odin, and he does an American accent, and I find most English people do terrible American accents, and he's no exception. But he plays a good Odin, in that the characterization is really well done. So a lot of the time, say in Marvel films, your Odin's like this patriarchal figure who, you know, just wants good for everyone, which is not what Odin's about. If you read the Eddas, Odin's a nasty, manipulative, scheming, two-faced kind of guy who just wants war and strife and stuff like that, which is exactly what this character is about, and it's a really good characterization. So this is the characterization of all the gods is very nuanced and deep. It's not just, oh, this god's good, this god's bad. It's like there's a bit of a history here, and we're talking about like the god doesn't do this just because the god wants to. It's because his worshippers invented him to think this way, or invented her to think this way, and this is their cultural practices, so this is what the god likes. And, you know, they have a lot of African gods, Anansi and Bast and Bilquis, things like that, and Slavic gods. Only one Greek god so far, I think. So yeah, it's interesting. It's very nuanced. It's quite bloody and what's that, Tom?
Who is the one Greek god, out of curiosity?
Damn, I can't. Of something to do with eyes and vision and seeing. I just can't remember.
A woman?
No, it's a male god, but he takes a lot of different forms. Yeah, like I cannot recall. It's like, yeah, I will have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
I need a few more Greek gods, but I
Can't
think,
be one.
yeah.
Well, Apollo had a vision. I mean, he bestowed clairvoyance to people, but he didn't change shapes all that much, I think.
Okay. Well, this is more about changing forms.
Watch it, find out.
Yes, exactly. He's in the second series, so yeah, watch it and see. So yeah, American
It
Gods.
sounds like a cool concept. I'd like to see it. I never got to read the graphic. I think it was a graphic novel, right?
Yeah.
Originally. Yeah, I never got to read that. I'm still behind on Neil Gaiman shit, but I wanted to check it out. So it's the series is pretty good so far?
It is. It's really dark and intense. So it's not something you'd find in TV on the old days. So yeah, it's really heavy. Like one of the main characters is a zombie and stuff like this, and so like there are these Egyptian gods who are they work in a morgue, and they stitch this zombie woman back together, and they're always like doing not autopsies, but you know, like embalming, like they peel the skin off a dead body, and like you see like the fat layer and the muscle of the body. They show everything.
How, like, what kind of clash it is. So basically it's the modernization of the world versus the old world, right? Maybe not modernity, but like modernization of things. Is it more, so you were making it sound like it's more technologically based, like the new gods, that kind of thing?
It's hard to work out, really. Yeah. So there's these new gods.
Okay.
Like Mr. World is the chief of them, and he's like really intimidating. His power is like supreme. Like he can sort of appear anywhere and do any sort of thing. And yeah, it's weird. I think it's based on the things that people are giving their attention to. So no longer are they giving they're no longer being worshippers. I'll go on, sorry.
That kind of notion where we empower the gods. The gods are in a sense powered by the devotion to them in a sense, right? So
that's exactly it.
Even if it's outside of a temple, there's these things that we put around in modern life. That's really interesting, because if there is a conflict built up around that, I mean, it would be really shitty if it was black and white, like, oh, technology is bad or that kind of thing. But I really don't see Neil Gaiman going in that sort of direction, that black kind of So this sounds really intriguing.
Yeah, definitely, because it's, even though it's from the point of view of the old gods, well, to say it's the point of view of the old gods, it's like Odin is like the chief kind of like disturbing element, making things happen. The chief character is this character called Shadow Moon. He was named that way because his mum was a hippie. So Shadow Moon is the main character, and everyone wants to win him over for some reason, and we don't know why yet. Odin really wants to win him over. So there's that sort of stuff happening. But what I was going to say was that it's not played in a way that, oh, old god's good, new god's bad. It's everyone has their own weird objectives, and we don't know who's good or bad.
Right? Like they run the spectrum, that kind of thing, like their own ideas and their own agendas and all that kind of thing. Oh, cool.
Exactly. Yeah. Like the real gods in the stories, like the real mythology.
Yeah. Devices. Huh, cool. I haven't really watched any, well, no, I take that back. I was going to say I haven't seen anything lately based on comic books, but I have watched a couple things lately based on mangas. I started finally watching JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which is insane, as anybody who has watched it or see it is I imagine, undoubtedly shaking their head right now. Yeah. I like it so far. I'm going to keep on with it. I can't say a whole lot about it right now, but other than it keeps bringing me back. So I like it. It's just super high energy, and like I think that's a big part of it. It's just that you want to see where things are going, but it's also just so energetic, and like it's like almost because I started with the first series. I'm assuming it's the first one. It's just JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and like it starts off in I don't know if it's Victorian England or what, and like it's not historical, but it's got this kind of shield around it to where it knows it doesn't have to explain itself, and so it doesn't, and therefore you don't question it. Like, well, this obviously, like it, it's coinciding with some events and stuff like that, but it's like, look at these people. They're not wearing what you would wear back then. They're not acting like how they would act back then, or maybe they're like super characterized versions of it, through like the ideas of like, being noble or honorable or something. But like, it's just this weird, JoJo is this weird bubble that doesn't have to explain itself, and somehow like you don't mind. You're like, this is fine, let's just go, show me where you're going. Like it's fun. It's a lot of fun. And then I also watched the full first season of Beastars, which I enjoy so far. Which I enjoy. I'm sure it'll continue because it kind of has left off on a bit of a mystery about one of the students, but I think it's very well written so far. It deals with I've never seen Zootopia, but I've heard that it's quite like that, and that they're taking these anthropomorphic creatures and using them to kind of express different ideas and contradictions in society, but it's more almost about fetishes in a sense. But it's well done. It never, like, even the scenes that are sexual never feel like they're dirty or like they're in there for fan service. They just seem more like they're just part of what's going on. I think it's well done. Aside from that, I watched The Lighthouse, which I liked that a lot. I would watch it again. It's I think both Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson are both really good in it. And they have to be, because they're basically the only two characters in the movie. They have to carry the movie, but they do quite well. And in The Lighthouse, it's basically, without giving too much away, it's kind of this analogy for how we create our own fate in a way through the things that we have done beforehand. And it's our like superstitions and stuff like that. When they come to pass, it's through our own doing and the things that we've brought upon ourselves through past events that we've done. But not so much in the guy. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but like you almost like you get what you deserve down the line kind of thing, but without being as heavy handed as like, well, it's disguised as like, you know, you hurt this seabird and now this thing is going to happen to you. But in reality, these things are happening to him because he's running away from the past and he's not dealing with it well, you know, but it's really kind of, it's something. It just turns into this tempest, this hurricane of these two personalities that are stuck together, which is resonating in these kind of times where we're all stuck inside. Hopefully nobody is as bad off as this, but like there's these two, it's all about solitude and just being stuck, and it was really good. I liked it a lot. And then it was made by the same people who made The Witch. And so they also have that old English kind of way of speaking, but even the two characters, it's really cool, have different ways. Like the old lighthouse keeper has almost more of like I guess more of a Scottish way of speaking. It's still English, but like that kind of old sea dog kind of like talk. While the other character, Pattinson's character, has very much more of like almost like an old style East Coast kind of accent. And they both sound very legit while being different, you know? So it's not just listening to the same person talk all the way through all those two different characters. I really liked it. It's not uplifting in any sense of the term. So if you want something that's going to make you feel good, this ain't it, but it's a trip. I liked it.
Sounds like I watched a film the other day. It's another dark 19th century thing. Black 47. I think it's called, which I think starred Robin Pattinson. I think no. I was thinking he was in it. I'm not sure. So the idea here is that some Irish fellows coming back from the American Revolutionary War back home, and there's potato famine, and he discovers his family's been killed or tossed out of their homes or whatever, and he goes on like this revenge killing spree, trying to get revenge on everyone who harmed him. And then there's these guys form these military people form some sort of a posse and go after him in the wilds of Ireland to get him and bring him to justice. And, you see all the dark goings on. So it's basically that 90s trope of dark Western, revenge Westerns, started by Unforgiven. It's just that exact template, but set in Ireland. So the Irish people are the Indians, and, the English people are like the whites sort of invading the land and dispossessing the native population, and that. It's quite successfully done. There's some historical errors that were a bit annoying to me because I like sort of 19th century stuff. Like none of these guys had swords. Like every single one of them would be having a sword. None of them have carbines. They all have full-length rifles on horses, which is stupid because they're way too big. So yeah, that annoys me. But it's a good kind of film in that genre set in Ireland. It was interesting. Anyway, sorry, Pete, because you were talking about The Lighthouse, cool. I just butted in.
Well, it's related. It's not me just giving movie recommendations, we're supposed to have a conversation. Oh, that's cool. What was it called?
Black 47, I believe.
Black 47. Okay.
One of the things, the Lighthouse is actually based on a fictionalized true story, I believe. There was a real lighthouse where the keepers were lost, and there was like some fictionalized accounts, like ghost stole them or whatever. So
no, see, that's what I thought at first. It's actually based on a different lighthouse.
Oh, really?
Event, Because that's what I thought too. Because I was even telling Tange about it after I saw it. I'm like, yeah, it's based off of this mystery that happened off the coast of Scotland, where there was like 4 lighthouse keepers, and they all vanished. And then, yeah, like you said, like there was these bits added afterwards that like, oh, they were, we found journal entries, and they were reporting on the storm that wasn't actually there, and like, they were praying, and like all this stuff was going on, but it found, I guess, that was added after the fact. But still, the 4 missing people. But yeah, this was a different lighthouse thing, where 2 people were, I guess, stuck in a lighthouse together and killed each other.
Oh, really? Okay. Like, oh, you're scheming about me. Oh, I know you're thinking.
All lighthouses are inherently haunted and full of creepy shit that happens.
I think there's an episode of The Goodies like that as well.
Have to be.
If like, I suppose pretty much no one outside of a certain generation in England and Australia would have seen this. The Goodies was this great TV show that was on about the same time as the Monty Python guys. And it's a good cultural touchstone for a lot of people. But yeah, a lot of people outside that generation wouldn't have seen it. But yeah, they used to do little stories based around stuff that was popular at the time, like punks and stuff. And they did something about the lighthouse where, they're up in the lighthouse and everyone's scheming against everyone else. And you're going to get me. Oh, no, you're going to get me. Oh, we're stuck in here. And, like the stir craziness gets to them and all that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Huh. But yeah.
Remember, you are not in a lighthouse. Things are going to be okay.
Yes.
You have all these movies to watch. It's going to be fun.
Exactly.
I haven't watched as many things as I thought that I would so far. There's been some other things. I did watch all of The Tiger King.
Oh my God, yes.
But it's once again, it's one of those things where you start watching it, you're like, the fuck? This documentary in the loosest terms possible, it doesn't really seek to answer that many questions rather than be like, guys, look at this freak show happening over here. We're all like, yeah. But I actually I didn't have plans to watch it, not for any particular reason. I just was kind of like, oh, whatever. But then at work, I listened to a lot of podcasts and stuff, and Spotify. There's this one on Spotify that it's about that whole incident and stuff, but they have like more interviews from the actual people, and I feel like it goes a little bit more in depth. So I started listening to that, and after a few episodes of that, I'm like, well, I've got to see like the faces of these people and put, a name to face and stuff like that. So then I started watching the one on Netflix, and I finished it within like 2 days, I think. And then the one on Spotify is still coming out. It's going to be a mini series, like six podcasts, I think. And then in between they have like interviews that they have with different people in there, like Carol Baskins and John Franke and stuff like that. And I mean, it's just such a cast of characters, like you just kind of can't help but get interested in it,
Well, that makes it better because you didn't watch it just because it was promoted as a thing or whatever. You'd actually seen some behind-the-scenes stuff, and you wanted to see where that came from, which is, I like that aspect better.
Yeah.
You weren't just bit by the viral bug. Oh, you have to see this. You have to.
I did almost feel bad one day because I was talking to one of my friends about it, and she's like, I just don't see how people can get into it. She's like, it's a reality show, right? Like, I just can't see how people can get into it. And like for a good second, I was like, well, I'm like, I fucking need to defending? Like, I'm defending like why I'm interested in it, but like, don't die over Tiger King, you know, like, because
the thing with reality TV, I have realized, because I also cannot stop watching that damn thing. Well, I know I'm not watching anything of quality, but I absolutely have to see it. And it hooks you in with the little trashy interactions in there, and then you want to see how it pans out, and then you want to see someone else's expression, and then it's a bit it involves you into altercations and situations and relationships as if you were included in a way, or you are a fly on the wall. Yeah, and that creates curiosity in order to go and see how all these situations conclude.
Yeah.
So that for real, that's how people get into it. It's not that it is the pinnacle of literature or anything like that.
Yeah. And there's no
it's
reason
human
why
nature.
Need to watch, you know, like we have this kind of gut reaction to defend ourselves. Like, oh, I watch this, but like it's a guilty pleasure. I'm like, why is it like that? Like I was just, you know, kind of almost like defending myself in a way when I was just talking about it. Like, oh, well, this thing, you know, it's not very good. And you have to stop and think sometimes, like, you know, why am I beholding myself as if that everything I need to watch needs to be a, you know, a comment on something mind blowing? It doesn't, you know. Watch whatever the fuck you want to watch, unless it's like
sometimes trash is good. Speaking of that, I watched.
Ironically, sorry, just 1 second. On reality TV, it's not really not mind-blowing in the sense that what the reality TV is showing you is human patterns of behavior that are being projected under some label. So from a sociological point of view and a psychological, maybe even social psychology point of view, you can definitely see what is being mapped out for large parts or groups of the population. So there are definitely a lot of things to see there if you want to make the experience constructive or stuff. But what I'm saying is that everything has value. It's just that it doesn't have necessarily artistic value or a literary value or philosophical value, but it does have its place in the human experience, and that's that.
Yes, anthropological value. Sociological. I watched a bit of RuPaul's work, whatever it is, RuPaul's Drag Race, that's it. Yeah, which is very, very trashy and very, like, you know, human kind of story stuff.
So fun.
Yeah, it's just
so fun.
quite a fun thing, because these are very heightened kind of characters. These are people who turn themselves into characters, so they become like cartoons almost. So everything is incredibly heightened, and the relationships between them are very, very heightened, and the tensions and stuff. So it's very, very fun to watch because of that, and to see, and because it's competitive, so you're seeing who wins and who like beats someone in a challenge, and what they think about that, and how they develop
personalities. You know, and then I mean, of course, RuPaul is always fun to watch. He's not in it very much, but like he's always a presence when he comes out. He's just like, on that note, another thing that you just reminded me that I watched is I finally got to watch Paris is Burning, which I've been wanting to watch forever. It's so good. Now that is a motherfucking documentary. But you know what it is? Have you ever heard of it? So basically it's about the drag scene that started in Harlem, like back in like the 80s and stuff. So it's way before Drag Race and stuff like that. But back when it was still really an underground thing, and the culture of the Drag Race and like just what it was and how it started off, and like all the people, because it started off in at least I don't know, at least this incarnation of it that I think is a big part of what eventually became Drag Race as we've seen it today and stuff. Because I think it takes a lot from this culture as it started out, was that it started in Harlem. So it's a lot of Black people getting together in the underground, especially when it's still very dangerous to, be a man dressing in a woman's clothing, especially back in that day. And how anyway, it's I can't really explain, but it's just it's good. Just watch it. Just go watch it.
Paris is Burning. Okay.
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Well, that's something to check out. Thank you for that. It's a good recommendation.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting a bit
It tells me, like, what a Canadian, like, redneck I am, that every time you say drag racing, I'm thinking of, like, cars.
Yeah.
To be honest, at first that's also what I thought. Then I realized that was not it.
Yeah.
Well,
it just didn't make sense.
They put an enormous dress on V8 Chevys.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's how. Yeah. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I used to go to drag races all the time, man.
You look lovely in a dress, Baines. Lovely.
Like, oh.
Got such a good taste in shoes. Well, we should. So we're getting a bit over time, but yeah, so we should wrap up. Baines, any final thoughts about stuff you've watched?
Yeah, well, two final thoughts. Watching Better Call Saul.
Oh, right.
Fantastic. So well written, and it's such, in the early seasons anyway, it was so slow paced that it's actually really great as a binge watch. I rewatched, since there's a year between seasons, wow. I rewatched the whole thing before the new season started, and it's like, really appreciated it when I could see it all together.
Yeah.
And how well it goes, what a great prequel it is. You should probably watch Breaking Bad first. Mm-hmm. But it's getting really good, and I'm really, scared about what's going to happen to certain characters who, since it's a prequel, and people who weren't in Breaking Bad, if anyone who watches this stuff knows what I'm talking about. Also worried about when it's going to continue, because they're supposed to do one more season. So it's like, how long is this delay going to be now? So, yeah.
With TV shows, that's very dangerous. And
I also tend to do a lot of rewatching, which I was going to mention earlier in the show. Because when you're trying to draw or write while you're watching, it's like, it's kind of hard to watch anything good.
Yeah.
And even anything bad, if you're focused on what you're doing, it's like, it ruins it. So I rewatched, what's it called? Amazing show. Oh, True Detective, season 1, which is a standalone season. It's amazing.
Very good.
I also appreciated that more on rewatch.
Some
and
excellent
I turned away
episodes,
from what I was doing to focus on certain powerful scenes. Yeah, really great.
Yeah,
well, it's like,
that's all.
There's a lot of I love Game Grumps, and I can say that I've seen a lot of episodes of Game Grumps. That's like my main YouTube thing. That besides that, and the bird videos. But like, I can't actually say that I've seen a lot of episodes of Game Grumps, because usually I have it on when I'm drawing or working on stuff, and I can't really watch it, and so I'm just like listening to it, and so like I'm sure I could rewatch like so many of those episodes again, and it'll be brand new to me.
That's well said. Yeah, same here. There's so much. I'm watching so much, and like I could literally go back and watch it all again, probably.
Yeah,
Just
yeah. You get more
washed
stuff
over.
out of it when you're actually focusing on the screen rather than just drawing stuff you never noticed before.
Yeah.
Well, we should wrap this up now. This has been a good Quackcast numbers 474. We're getting close to 500. Half a thousand. Jeez, oh my god.
Jeez, Christmas.
Yes, exactly. We've just been hacking through these. So thank you guys for being part of the Quackcast.
Thank you.
You for being part of the QUACKCast.
Thank you for being the Quackcast.
Wow.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Yeah.